Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business. Hey, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm very excited to have Bill Coletti joining us. Bill, welcome.
Michael, glad to be with you. Thanks for making the time.
All right. So, Bill, for those who aren't familiar with your work, just take a moment, share with us what you do.
So my name's Bill Coletti, and I am the founder of Kith Consulting, and we are a crisis communications and reputation management firm, and we do three primary things. We work with corporate clients on crisis response, crisis readiness, and crisis training. So it's sort of a very, very niche offering that we do. And then at the apex of crisis is that we spend a lot of time with the long tail relationship on reputation management.
Love it. Okay, we're going to dive much deeper into a lot of that on the show here today. But let's go back kind of to the beginning, the early years. How did you even get involved in crisis communications and reputation management consulting?
During and after college, I spent the first part of my career working on political campaigns. And I ran my first state Senate race as a senior in high school for a friend who ran for office, and then ultimately worked for a party organization and then increasingly larger campaigns. And so the beginning part of my career was all focused on campaign consulting and electoral politics, and then ultimately ran a couple of statewide campaigns. Had a little bit of an interruption in there where I took off and went and did some of that in Eastern Europe, but then ultimately came back and ran a U.S. Senate campaign in 2000. So that was the first phase. And then from there, that then transitioned into a consulting role with a growing 150-person firm based in Austin, Texas. I was in Florida at the time. We grew a Florida office, and it was a firm that focused on the intersection of business and government, not lobbying. So it was very much issues management and sort of what I called critical moments communications.
Good. And today, your clients are some very well-known organizations, and I'll get to who those are in just a moment. But I think you've been now building your current business for about 5 years, if I'm not mistaken. You started that after working at Hill & Knowlton and then Public Strategies. Why did you decide to leave the quote-unquote comfort of working for established organizations as a consultant or your role as VP to go off on your own and actually start to begin running and building your consulting business?
It's a terrific question. And I sort of really believe in the philosophy of radical candor. And so I'll sort of just give you the very candid perspective on that. Is that we were at Public Strategies and we got acquired by WPP, which is a large multinational advertising marketing firm holding company. And the unique culture and the unique kindred spirit that you have with a 100 to 150 person firm was much different with multi-thousand, 3,000, I think, size firm. And so when I looked to my left and I looked to my right, a number of my colleagues and friends and kind of posse, if you will, were all leaving just because it wasn't what we had known. It wasn't what we had loved and what we had built. We didn't do it out of spite, didn't do it out of anger. It was just not that place. And equally candid is that the fundamental offering of a global PR firm and the fundamental offering of what we did at Public Strategies, that intersection of business and government, they were different. So it just became time. There were leadership changes. There were structural changes. I spent a lot of time on the road. I spent, like all good consultants, 3 to 4 days a week on the road. And it was just an opportunity for change. And I had gone through some life transitions, and those life transitions got together with the corporate transition. So it was just time, and it was scary. The comfort, the word you used, is an excellent word because it was comfortable. I knew it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. And it was a bumpy start. There was a false start transition with a firm that I tried to start in Florida that didn't pan out. And then I ultimately went out on my own, and it's been the best thing I've ever done. I love it.
When you say that you had a false start, can you share with us a little bit more about what that was and looked like? And I'm asking because oftentimes in our quote unquote failures, there's lessons to be learned. And so I'm wondering, what lessons did you learn from that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of us venture, and I know you've done this, all of us look wouldn't it be nice if we had a partner? Wouldn't it be nice if we had an ally? Some people go out, strike out on their own and build a firm and they stay at the top of the pyramid. So I really, in leaving that comfortable environment that you described, is that I wanted to have a community. And so I partnered with a couple of people that were in Florida that had the beginnings of a firm, and the firm was sort of going, and I was going to come in and take over a large practice area for them. And so partnership is great, and a lot of people it really works. But I think the primary issue for us was just that we were intellectually aligned on the work product and intellectually aligned on products that we were offering the marketplace. We weren't aligned on customer service. We weren't aligned on how you treat your clients. And we weren't aligned on really sort of fundamental issues of grace and character. And I don't mean that in a disparaging way, because you can be graceful in lots of different ways and you can have lots of different types of character. I don't think that's an on-off switch. But it wasn't perfectly aligned with the way I wanted to treat people and I wanted to be treated myself. So it really came down to personal attributes around the way we treat and the way we evaluate clients.
That really resonates. Written a little bit about and made some videos around this concept that I call the unprofessional professional, where I see a lot of people in the marketplace who, in some cases, have been, quote unquote, very successful, but the way that they communicate or their lack of communication to me is disparaging. And I just see a lot of potential opportunities being missed, but also it's just not the way that I would want to run a business. I treat, when someone sends an email, like I'm going to make sure that I get back to them as long as I possibly can, especially if it's something that I said that I was going to do. And just kind of following up with sticking to your word for me is very important. But I know that for many others, it doesn't always seem to be that way. So I can understand that lack of alignment that you had in that previous firm. So when you went out and decided, okay, I'm going to start my own company. And again, now you've built this up to work with some very well-known organizations. What were some of the initial challenges that you then had as kind of a sole owner or founder of this business to start off?
The challenges are pretty typical challenges. Challenges is how are you going to make your mortgage payment? And so I was really fortunate to have an anchor client that moved over with me, a longstanding client that became an anchor client, that really sort of let me build a foundation with them. And that really helped on that. The other challenges were scale. How do I scale who I am? I can only have so many hours a day to trade for money. So that was a challenge. And then the other big challenge we had at the outset of the firm is, who are we? What do we stand for? What do we mean? What's our niche? And we were all over the place.
Let's start with that one. I mean, how did you hone in on, like when we started the conversation today, you were very clear with your 3 offerings, right? And you were very clear on what you do, kind of who you do it for. And that is, you're right, an area that a lot of consultants struggle with, especially in the early days, kind of finding who they are. That paradox of choice, having so much choice because so many consultants bring a lot of knowledge and experience and expertise to the table. So how did you decide to really narrow in and focus on the service offerings that were going to be the most successful for you?
So we knew that crisis and crisis communications, that was the title that I carried at Hill & Knowlton, and I was the global practice leader of our crisis practice. And so I knew that was going to pull through. That was obvious because that's what I was known for. It's what I did and what I enjoyed. So that was pulling through. It was really the discernment to say no to other areas such as issues management, which is a derivative of that in the communication space, or lobbying or public affairs. And then the notion of reputation management. As I got tired of solely being a firefighter, which is what I do as a crisis communicator, I want to have people think about reputation and think about it in a different way on the long tail of that. We knew what the core was. We knew that was our discipline. Always struggled with the marketplace. So I've always been envious of the firms that are, for example, architects to food and agriculture companies. Pick the marketplace, pick the discipline, but they are crystal clear on that marketplace and discipline definition. And so I knew the marketplace. So our initial challenge was, we've got these half a dozen things we can do. We know there's the one core thing that we do. What are the adjacencies? And we've now really refined that to crisis and reputation management. So it's the discipline to say no. And then marketplace, we have always struggled with marketplace. And that is the nature of my business, is not, I just can't be the guy, the industry, because there simply isn't enough crisis work. in that space. So I have to be a little bit broader. I look at larger companies. If there's a marketplace I have, it's large enterprise companies.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a bit of a theme in looking at some of your clients, whether it's in, let's say, medical or healthcare. There seems to be certain little themes, but there's also, for example, a basketball team or things along those lines. So let's come back to scaling in a moment. I think that's a really interesting conversation or area that we could explore. And I'd like to hear how you've been approaching that. But I think some consultants might wonder here, Bill, how do you sell services for something that may not be on the mind of the company that you want to sell it to all the time, right? When it happens, they're scrambling to get help, but it's not necessarily something that they're actively looking for at this moment if everything is going well in their business. So how did you approach that?
It is the fundamental question that I really struggle with of how do I sell what I do and vis-a-vis how do I market what we do? So the primary source of business for us is referrals, is that we, through lawyers and or other executives that we've worked with, company X finds themselves in a challenging situation. They say, who do you know? Who's worked with you in the past? And that's how I get referrals. And so that is almost 9 out of 10, frankly, is where that comes from. And it's people that trust me, know me, and have had some experience with me in some form or fashion. The way we sell it in a greenfield sales context is that we really sell readiness and concepts of risk. Is that every organization, even if they think they are crisis immune, need to be risk aware. And so we really sell it under the context of not talking about crisis, but talking about it as risk. Let's do some risk evaluation. Let's do some risk triage. That then leads into understanding about your crisis readiness. And so the lead is not, I'm here to be your firefighter. The lead is, I'm here to help you do fire prevention so that you don't need me. And so it's a counterintuitive sales cycle. I'm trying to convince them that they don't need to retain my services if they retain my services. Right.
And do you get pushback on that where some people might say, well, yeah, I understand this kind of risk assessment or readiness to kind of get our risk profile, but we haven't had a problem. We have good management. Maybe we don't need this. Is that something that comes up a lot? And if so, how do you respond to that?
It does. It's a little naive. I think that is just a sales speed bump that people put up. But I think if they pause and think about it, and if I would pull out, happen to be the magazine or the newspaper that I'm reading at any moment, is that I point to, well, could this company be you? That's the subject of a headline of an article in the newspaper magazine. And they pause and are somewhat of a reflective leader. They'll say, yeah, that could be me. Or if I ask a question, and I love using questions in the sales cycle as a qualifying and also a way to sort of me learn. If I ask questions and I'll say, well, I know you're perfect and I understand that you guys are really well buttoned up, but have you seen anybody in your industry or in your vertical or in your category that has gone through something like this? And everyone says, oh, well, absolutely. ABC company went through that. And I said, well, could you ever imagine a time where that would be you? And so those are the ways we sort of get around it in a sales context. It doesn't always work. Some people think their stuff doesn't smell, and some people think they're really, really good. And I'm sure you run into hubris among corporate clients all the time. Everybody does. And you say, okay, it's not for you. And that's fine. And so I'm okay with that.
Everyone does. Yeah. Today, or if we're just kind of looking at the types of clients that you serve, Cargill, City of Hope, Cracker Barrel, Home Depot, Target, Xerox, the San Antonio Spurs, well-known brands, companies, organizations. You mentioned that referrals are your biggest source of leads and opportunities for your consulting company. How do you approach getting referrals? I mean, are people just emailing you and giving you a call, or are you actively and proactively doing something to help facilitate and support getting those referrals?
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively. developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
I'm sure you're familiar with the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS, and most everybody should be, because I think it's really, really good stuff. So you just hit on one of our big rocks for this year. For one of our big rocks is to really formalize and figure out a referral-based marketing system and put that in place. There's two main things. So the answer to your question is we don't have any silver bullets on this one. We have done a lot of outreach to attorneys, a lot of outreach to former clients, and a lot of outreach to PR firms and folks that don't have this specialization and don't view me as a competitive threat, and reached out to them seeking referrals.
And what does that look like, Bill? I mean, when you say outreach to, let's say, attorneys or PR firms, just so that people can, if we can just really break this down, is this an email? Is this a direct mail, like printed letter? Is it a phone call? Is it a combination of these? And then what does it actually say? How do you start that? What does that messaging look like?
Yeah, the sequence is email, phone call, meeting. The email is typically email, phone call, email, another phone call, and then a meeting. It's not as simple as, exactly. It sounds more elegant to say email, phone call, meeting. But as you know, there's a herky jerks in there before it actually happens. And it's that I find some sort of point of connection in our respective networks. Law firms, I've worked with enough of the larger law firms that I do 6 degrees of 2 or 3 degrees of separation. I probably know somebody there. And I've seen that they've worked on a situation that is comparable to something that I've done, and really just make an introduction, create a meeting, and really just have a very informational conversation where I try to share and be very helpful to them at any compensation. And then just get in the Rolodex, then they get in our CRM and we follow up and stay connected with them. And I love to just shoot little emails back and forth to people that says, hey, did you see this? Or were you aware of this? And I know you were working in Denver and on this topic, I saw this going on in Cleveland, thought you might be interested in knowing about it. So that's the basic system. Some people are not interested. We've really, interestingly, recently done a lot with these PR firms. And a lot of PR firms, they are marketers at their core, and they are really trying to get promotion and media and attention for their clients, and anti-attention, which is kind of what I'm in the business of. I'm trying to less attention on people, is not really core competency for them. And they've got real serious clients with serious problems. I have a crystal clear with my discipline. I have no interest in doing PR work. I have no interest in doing anything that is a threat to them. And so it's a pretty symbiotic relationship. And with the attorneys, I occasionally am tip of the spear and can refer attorneys, but most often they're the first phone calls that corporations in trouble. So it's difficult for me to be too helpful to attorneys, but very easy for me to be helpful to and non-threatening to PR firms.
So 2 questions for you on this. The first is, when you are sending out the email to people, it sounds like you're very much personalizing the message. How much time do you find it typically takes for you to identify someone who is a mutual connection, or to do the research to know that they were dealing with a situation that happened in Denver? Just kind of give us a sense of how much time is being spent for each person that you're reaching out to.
So I don't know if I can give you the specific on that. I'll probably back into the answer. But for me, and my role as the leader of the firm, 75 plus, a big portion of my time is spent on sales and marketing. So a huge component of what I do. There are certain episodes when there's a crisis engagement where I kind of lose track of that and like all in for a period of time with a client. I would say it's 30-minute, 45-minute exercise. You get pretty nimble on LinkedIn. You get pretty nimble with keyword searches on Google, and you put 2 and 2 together. It is a spark. It is a touch point. You don't need to write a case study about what happened in Denver. You just need to kind of spark that curiosity. The greater challenge is simply just the logistics of coordination and finding time to get on the phone and finding time to be diligent. And that's, if we lose our way, that's really where we lose our way. It's not on the front end. We lose our way on the cat wrangling. That's the real challenge for us. So, but if I find a name or find a topic or find something that is mutually interesting and I want to go pursue it, it's a 30, 45-minute process from beginning to end. I've got a relatively straightforward template of an email that we send, and it's a little plug and play after that.
All right. Then the second part of that is some people who are listening to this might be wondering, well, what's the incentive for the PR company or the attorneys or whoever it might be to connect or to pass you that piece of business? Are they receiving, do you have some kind of compensation structure where they're receiving some compensation for, like, if you take on work, they get a piece of that? Or what type of structures or agreements do you find work best for partnerships like this or referrals?
It's interesting. So I've found generally in my experience of having done this for quite some time, there's two types of agency principals, and for that matter, legal advisors. There's two types, those that are self-aware and those that are paranoid. And if you're paranoid, you're really threatened by me and you don't really want to have me in there because you're afraid that I'm going to steal client. And so therefore I just don't even bother. If that's the pushback.
And how do you know that? Is it based on their language in the meeting or?
Yeah, based on the language, context, clues, things like that. Just they're a little standoffish. If there are some that are self-aware and like, okay, wow, this guy's pretty serious. This guy actually has done stuff I've read about in the paper that's pretty high profile. He's somebody we should know. We're pretty good too, but we're not maybe that good. And that's just a self-awareness. And so I think that's key to success is people to be self-aware. But to your specific point about contractual language, we're open to that. I can't think of a time where I've come in as a sub for somebody that needed some help, but I don't really do much of that. I do mostly, someone will say, let me introduce you to my client or let me introduce you to my friend. Their compensation, if you will, is that they are being helpful to those that they serve. And so I said,
right. They're becoming like a higher level of a trusted advisor status with their client.
Absolutely. All the David Maister stuff and all that trusted advisors. Absolutely. They provide value by me providing value. I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's rare. And I think that when you do that and someone wants your hooks in you like that, my sense is that those are kind of the vestiges of paranoia. Is they want to have some semblance of control that's there.
Makes sense. So you mentioned that one of the other challenges or kind of areas that you were focused on initially, and I'm sure that as your business has continued to grow, gain more momentum, and get more clients, is scale. So what have you been doing, Bill, to really grow and scale your business beyond just the time that you have?
Yeah. So one of the best things that I did about 2.5 years ago was made the decision to hire a really strong deputy, someone who could potentially be me over the long term. And that individual at the outset she's no longer here, but an incredibly talented, seasoned strategist and really good. And with time can easily do what I do with some experience and what have you. But the awareness that I don't have to do everything and the awareness that clients are actually, as long as their needs are met and they know that I'm not far away, that clients are actually okay with that. So once my scale challenge became minimized, once I became self-aware that I didn't have to do everything, that clients were fundamentally in need, they weren't fundamentally in need of me. And there's some ego in that, but I think that was really, really valuable to get help. The other thing similar to that is being really, really honest that there are things I am not good at. There are things that I am a bottleneck to. There are things that I bog down. There's content and outputs and reports that other people do better than me. And being okay in asking for help and being okay to say, hey, I'm not going to do that because that's not highest and best use. You need to do that. Being able to delegate and being okay with that from a work product standpoint, but also for me, being okay with it. I don't want to impose on people. I'm a pretty serving, giving kind of guy. And when I ask people to do my laundry, I feel like I really shouldn't be doing that, but I know that that is not highest and best use of my time. And so being those two things, being conscious of those two things is really critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's so important. You see many consultants, especially the earlier stages, who look at working with others or bringing other people on or using contractors or whatever. They see it as a cost, not as an investment. And so then they hesitate to offload that work. But really, when you view that as an investment, not only does it allow you to potentially have someone who's even better in those other areas to do the work for you. But as you mentioned, Bill, it frees you up to focus on the highest valued tasks and areas where you can create even more value and even more revenue and even greater growth. So I'm glad that you shared that message with everyone here. Bill, I want to thank you again for coming on here today and sharing a bit of your journey and story with us. There's so much more that people can learn from you, and I know you've done some just amazing work. What's the best place for people to learn more about you and also to learn more about your book, Critical Moments? Where should they go to learn both about you, your firm, and more about your book?
Terrific. Well, thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation, and you do terrific stuff. So you should be commended for the great work that you do for your client and the podcast and the sharing that you do. So
thank you.
Folks can find me at kith.co, KITH.co. That's our website. I'm very active on LinkedIn as Bill, Coletti, Bill Coletti. And then also on Twitter, B Coletti, at B Coletti. And so those are kind of the three main areas. We do a lot of blogging. We do a monthly webinar. We do a lot of content. About once a week, we share some content on our blog and insight and perspective on what we do. We share that on LinkedIn. So the three primary vehicles for us is just the website, easy to find us there, LinkedIn under me and the firm, but then my Twitter feed at B Coletti. Those are the two best ways. And then the book's got its own website. It's criticalmomentsbook.com. The subtitle of it is The New Mindset of Reputation Management. And it's this new framework that we are offering to clients to get past crisis thinking and into long-term reputation thinking. And the traction and the response has been fabulous for the book. It's been one of the better. It felt good to get it out of me, but it also been very useful in the marketplace.
Perfect. Well, we will make sure that all that is linked up, your website, the book, your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. So if you are listening to this and you're at the gym or you're driving or you're on a run or out for a walk, whatever it may be, just head over to consultingsuccess.com, search for Bill Coletti or click on the podcast link at the top there. You'll be able to find this episode with the full transcript and also the links to everything that Bill has talked about today. Bill, again, thanks so much.
Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.